Okay, we're back here with my 2005 PT Cruiser today, and I'm going to be showing you how to replace the valve cover gaskets on this. And I've already got this kit, and so the first thing we're going to do is get this out of the way. We need an 8mm to get this loose, and I've already gotten it loose, and we can just kind of squeeze this a little bit, and you can pull this off separate, or you can just pull the whole thing out at once. And then we got vacuum hose right here. Now I would highly recommend, when you're starting to take a lot of these components off, to get you some tape and a marker and label everything. I'm probably not going to be doing that today because I've done this so many times, but take pictures, or like I said, label everything, because don't rely on your memory. You will not get stuff back, or you'll get confused or something. So we're just going to get started at taking this here out first. And like I said, there's some rubber grommets, and it just pops up and out of there. And we're just going to take this right here loose. Okay, now we're just going to take this vacuum hose loose right here. We're going to work on this connector. You'll notice the red locking tab, just push that back, and then it'll pop right off. And you may not be able to get it one-handed. Sometimes these will stick because the clips are wore out. There it goes. And then over here we've got a locking tab on that one. Push that back. Just disconnect that. Down below here we've got a couple of vacuum hoses. We just need to work on getting those off. And these may be tight. You may need a screwdriver or something to get them loose, to kind of give you a little extra leverage. Now this here needs to pop up. It just pulls up. Again here, we've got a locking tab. You can't see it, pull it back and squeeze that right there. We've got another one on this side, and I don't know if it's got the locking tab. I'm not feeling it. It may be missing. A little bit more difficult to get. Okay, so I guess if it did have a locking tab, it's broken. Alright, now the next thing we're going to work on is getting this off. You'll notice the little clip. Push in on that. Push forward. Same thing right here. And it just pops completely off. Now with these, you can take these off first, or how you want. You just flip that around, pops right out. Okay, now this here, you've got a little clip you need to pull out, and that pulls straight out, and this one just pulls right straight out. So then you got those disconnected. Okay, so you come to the back of your intake here, right here where your overflow. You look right back there, you'll see a 13mm. Get you a little ratchet in there. Just go ahead and take that bolt completely out. Okay, and there's that 13mm completely removed. Now we're going to be working on these up here. You may need to get you a ratchet with extension. You got to get back in here. Mine shouldn't be so tight, but yours may. And I'm going to go ahead and get these here loose at this point. Okay, now we have all those 8mm bolts out of there. We're just going to set those aside. Okay, and once we've got those, this thing is completely ready just to be moved out of the way. And we're just going to set it aside here for now. Now the next thing we're going to get to work on is just removing. We've got 4 10mm holding this coil pack. This has a locking tab on it. Looks like it's not even locked, but if it is, you push that back with a screwdriver, and you can press down and just remove that from your coil pack there. We'll just set that aside. And there's our 4 bolts from our coil pack, those 10 millimeters. And now we can just pop these out of here. Like I said, they are numbered, if you look, as to where they go, so there's no confusion. Okay, now we got to work on removing the bracket holding the power steering tank here. And we come to the back. There are a few 13 millimeters that you can see right under here, there, and there. And we just have to get, I'm just getting back there with my little 13 millimeter, and we're just going to get those 2 out at this point, and that's going to free that up. Okay, and there's those 2 holding that bracket for the power steering tank here. And now we should be able to get this moved and freed up enough where we can kind of get it out of our way as needed, because we need to get to that bolt on that corner right there, so we can move it and work it around. So now the next thing, we're going to get to work on these 8 millimeters that we've got set around the perimeter, and then we've got the 2 right here in the center. Before I get ahead of myself, we also have to remove this. There's 2 8 millimeters right there. You don't even need to disconnect this. Just remove this and this 8 millimeter and just let this thing hang. Okay, with the cam sensor off, we're ready to remove all the 8 millimeters holding the valve cover here now. Okay, so we've got this removed, and I'm going to be taking these little bolts out here and running this through some degreaser and cleaning it up, and then we're going to work on getting our seals back on here. And also, I just like to point out, you'll know if yours are bad. You'll have leakage going down the back of the engine, and it'll also be leaking down into your spark plug wells, and it can foul out your spark plugs. So they're definitely worth replacing for no more than they cost, and it's really not that hard to do this. Okay, so I'm getting ready to remove these old gaskets. You can see how flattened these are and how they're not doing any good. You can also see how flat and deteriorated that this has gotten. And we're just going to be using our little pick tool. You can also use a nail or whatever you have, just kind of a knife, something to dig those out. So we're going to go ahead and get these out, and like I said, get it degreased and cleaned up a little bit. Okay, right now I'm just replacing these little seals that go around the bolts on here. Now, you don't have to do this. I don't think they're as critical, but I had an extra kit laying around that had these, so I'm going to go ahead and replace these. They're real simple. You know, just slip the old one off and slip the new one back on. There's no special way it's got to go on or anything, and that just helps keep the bolts sealed. So I'm just doing this at this point while I got my valve cover cleaned up, and I'm just drying it out in the sun there. So I'm going to go through and replace these little seals around the bolt. Okay, another thing I'm going to do while I've got this thing off of here is I'm going to replace this seal, because I have an extra one that goes on the throttle housing. We've just got 3 10 millimeter bolts. We've got one there, we got one down there on the bottom, and then one down here on this side. We're just going to get an extension and get in here and get these off, and just go ahead and replace that thing there while we're at it. Okay, and there's our old seal there, and the new seal, and we're just going to go ahead and just put this back together. Okay, right now I was just taking brake cleaner and cleaning the surface of the head all the way around. Pay particular attention to these areas where you have these junctions, and right here, and then the same down here, and then back on this side, because in those areas I'll be showing you where we're going to put the silicone that's going to be going back on here. Okay, now we're just getting ready to get our new seal on here, and we're just going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, now this thing will pretty much only go one way, but the wide part goes down into the groove there because it holds it, and the little narrow piece is going to be the part that's sticking up, and so it's just going to set like so. Okay, now we're getting ready to put our little seals in where the spark plug wells go, and you'll notice that there's a little curved end. Now that will actually set down in like that, so we just have the little curved end, and it's going to line up just right directly with the slot that it's supposed to, and we just work that down in there. And so like I said, they'll only go one way, and so we're just going to go ahead and get the rest of these in. Alright, now I'm getting ready to put the RTV to where it needs to go. I've got this ultra black that I'm using, and I'm just going to be showing you where it goes. Like I said, it's going to go here at this junction, and it's going to go at that junction, and then where the heat tab is, it goes at those points. I just run a bead right across it, and then the same thing over here at that junction, and then the same thing at the back. So we're going to go ahead and get that on there before we set our valve cover on. Okay, and here's our silicone into place, and a lot of these you have to just use your finger to get it in there because it's so hard to get to it otherwise. But there it is in the back there as well on those points. So now we're ready to go ahead and to set our valve cover on here. Okay, now we've carefully set it into place as to not mess up our silicone, and now we're just going to work on getting our bolts back in here. Okay, now we have all those hand tight. We're just going to go ahead and torque it to 105 inch-pounds. We're just going to work from the center and kind of zigzag and work our way out. Okay, and with those torqued, we're going to go ahead and get our coil pack back on at this point. Remember, we just have the 4 10mm bolts. Make sure your coil pack plug is on this side. Okay, don't over tighten these. These are just little brass inserts that's going into that. I only went 85 inch-pounds on it, and that's going to be plenty enough. And right now we're just hooking the coil up while we're here. We'll go ahead and reconnect that. Make sure that it snaps all the way, and then lock that back into place. Okay, now while we're at it here, we're going to go ahead and get these back in onto the spark plugs. Like I said, they're numbered, so there's no confusion. Okay, and right now we're just getting ready to set this intake back on here. You'll notice this has a plastic pin on the bottom that will line up, so you really can't put it on wrong. I'm going to get a few of these 8mm just hand started here, not tied at all, and then we're going to go ahead and get to the back and get the 13mm that goes through this right here. And this is, you have to get it lined up, or you know, watch what you're doing there so you get it lined up with that brass piece right there. So you just kind of work with it, make sure that you got it lined up properly before you just go to tightening on it. It's easy to strip these brass inserts, so you have to be careful. Okay, I'm just going through and hand tighten these here. They call for 105 inch-pounds. I usually don't put them that tight because it's not necessary. So now we just have to get our little ratchet back here and tighten this 13 in the back here. Okay, now before I forget, we're going to get over here and get our cam sensor back on, and we've just got a couple of 8mm that are going to go right in there. Okay, right now I'm just getting ready to put these two back in our bracket on our power steering tank there, and so we're just going to go ahead and get those in at this point. Okay, so we're just going to start reattaching things. We've got our vacuum hoses here. And we've got another one that goes right here. This connector that we need to get on here. And remember to push the lock. Okay, and then this one reattaches to this. And then we've got several connectors down here. This one goes onto our duct here. And we push that forward. We have a connector back under here that's going to connect to this bottom piece, and I can show you that one right there. And then we've got our coil reconnected already, so we're just going to go through and double check some things. Now we need to go ahead and get our cables on. Like I said, it's just the reverse process. Just push that back, bend it around. So I'm going to go ahead and slip those on. This one goes in first, slides in, and then the other one will slide in there, and it has the little locking piece on it. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, and we have this connector right here, and it also has a locking tab that you push forward on that. Okay, now I'm just replacing this piece for our throttle cables and cruise control cable there. Just make sure that I've got them fully snapped in there. And now looks like we're ready to go ahead, get our breather box back in here. You can put it in as one unit, just slide in this end first. Make sure to reconnect this hose here. Make sure you get it firmly on there all the way, and then we can just put this back on, and it just realigns that rubber nub with that slot right there. And so we'll just go ahead and tighten this. We'll make sure that it's set down into the grommet properly under there. Okay, so we've just went back and double checked and made sure that we didn't miss anything, got everything buttoned up, and we're all good to go on the valve covers, and that will stop all that leakage down the engine and into our spark plug wells. So like I said, hopefully that can help out, and thank y'all for watching.